First, you had to eliminate democracy in the school system. So, under the cover of the disaster, despite the fact that there have been huge efforts to build charter school apparatus in New Orleans that have been rejected by voters repeatedly, initiatives in Tulane and UNO, the local universities to do so, that have been rejected by huge margins. To go to a charter, you had to have the vote of the teachers, all these things rejected, and supported by the public in that sense. So the first thing that happened is that where there had been 2 or 3 failing schools under No Child Left Behind, the educational apparatus moving to terminate these 5,000 teachers and paraprofessionals, then got this 2 or 3 school RSD, this, reform school district, to essentially got the governor to agree to give charters a, automatic 3-4 year period without review, not accountable to any elected school board member, any elected process, where they were able to reformulate a school. So this became the grand experiment in public education in the United States, is essentially privatizing in a neoliberal way all these charter schools. So now, 7.5 years later, 80-odd% of the students are educated in charter schools by this one, that one, and another. Some of them are, this is their first charter school. Some of them are part of a national network, what used to be Green Dot, and is now called whatever, and the Kippers, and this one's the first union. They all have different names, and some of them last, and some of them don't, and some of them are embarrassing to the state, and some of them aren't, but none of them are accountable to anybody. Now, this all comes to an end because eventually you have to have tax money, and that's the voters, and you can't get the tax money once all the, Bush gave a $20 million subsidy immediately to encourage the charterization. So when they were desperate for money, getting out $20 million was life. So they were closed down, got the $20 million, and this is what you have. And we have, what used to be ACORN in New Orleans is now called A Community Voice, and today they did, and this is 7.5 years ago, they did training in door knocking for 200 Teach for America folks, which is part of how they break the union and populate the teaching things, is these youngsters coming out of school who are desperate, whatever. So they've allocated $1 billion to rebuild schools. Some of these schools are in areas that weren't even affected by the hurricane, that they're rebuilding. This has been a controversial issue, that you could somehow fast track the rebuilding schools in Algiers that was totally unaffected by Hurricane Katrina. Algiers across the river. We got hit on our side of the river. It's all part of New Orleans. The actual schools in the most hurricane-affected area have either not been built yet, or there's less investment in those schools. What used to be ACORN, called A Community Voice, just won this year a commitment to rebuild a high school, and still fighting about when that'll be finished. The school district is trying to, or the RISD is trying to avoid. I don't, once again, I got to stop myself. I don't, short question, long answer. Usually, you got trouble there. Somebody's trying to tell you a big fat whopper. But in this case, when you go around the country, people see New Orleans as like a revolutionary new experiment, sort of the bright shining path of what we want to do in schools. There's no evidence yet that any of these charter schools do any better on a test or anything else than the schools still in the much maligned elected school board district. Yet we are full blown and going. The governor now is a right-wing Republican, hoping to be, Romney's vice president if some, lightning strikes his butt. And so he's extended it so you get another 2 years before you have to go into elected control. And it's just one thing after another, but the buildings are being built slowly in many areas now. Maybe at the 10, 11, 12 period, years after the storm, most of those buildings will be rebuilt. There's still highly contentious issues about where and how much money and, what the footprint has been. But it's not a pretty story. So if you were thinking about becoming a teacher in New Orleans, we'd certainly love to have you. But if you're thinking this is where school reform is happening, no.
No, I was just more interested in if you want to revitalize neighborhoods. having a local, I can walk to it, school is a real draw.
Sweetie, having a local school any way you can get to it is a
Right.
huge draw
Right,
in
but I
rebuilding
mean-
our neighborhoods, and we're having trouble winning those schools. And not surprisingly, and once again, you know, New Orleans is a broke-ass city. We're not, you know, we actually have to rent 1%ers to come visit New Orleans. We don't have enough to live there on our own, you know, so we don't have one of these sort of, you know, you get to be 1% in New Orleans, I think, if you make $100,000 a year in your income, you know. In other places, you got to have 350,000, you know. So who knows what a 1% is? It's all math. But the bottom line is, we desperately need these schools, and many neighborhoods need them critically. But if you looked at Lakeview, once again, largely white, largely upper middle income area, devastated in exactly the same way the lower Ninth Ward. Hines, you remember where Hines Elementary was? Hines is now a huge school, multi-grades, beautiful facility. Just they didn't finish it 2 years after the storm. It just got finished in the last year. Got a gym, got all kinds of magic things there. And we're still fighting in lower Ninth Ward to make sure that this commitment will actually be built by 2015.
So what are the kids doing?
Well, you hop a bus and you
take
go
them.
wherever they go, and it's now a open enrollment charter system. So, you know, you stand in line to try to get your child in this school, that school, or whatever, and it's just like the New York City school system. It's an open enrollment, and that's an open enrollment public school system. So if you're willing to jump on jump on the subway in Washington Heights to go to East New York, because that's the school you want to go to, boom, 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 there you go. 2 hours coming, 2 hours going, you know, change at Brooklyn, at the Brooklyn City Hall. And that's the same thing in New Orleans, on a very much smaller footprint with less adequate public transportation. And now we're having, you know, the governor, because he's still trying to run for some foolish vice president seat on the Republican side, just got this thing through to voucherize, to give people a chance to go fight to have vouchers to Catholic schools. And just yesterday, before I got on a plane, at our house, we got a piece of mail telling us the list of 30 Catholic schools in the area where if I had children still young enough to go, they could get, you know, state money to be able to walk themselves right over to Holy Angels or whatever. So we're a broke-ass city that has, you know, 3 school systems: Catholic, well, 4: Catholic, private, for the real 1%ers that are left, RISD, the RSD, Recovery School District, and then the actual Orleans Parish Public School District, which used to be everybody, 98,000 school kids, and now is, you know, 22,000, 23,000. But yeah, this is a lot of issues when you have a storm like Katrina and you're trying to rebuild a population like this.